Chapter 13, text 30. You can all say these together, the Sanskrit and the translations. Prakrityaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashaha yapashyati tatatmanam akartaram sapashyati. One who can see that all activities
formed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees.
Yada bhuta pratak bhavam ekastam anupashyati tata eva cha vishtaram brahmasam pajyate tada. When a sensible man ceases to see different
identities which are due to material bodies, he attains to the Brahman conception. Thus he sees that beings are expanded everywhere.
Anaditvam nirgunatvat paramatmayam avyayaha sharirostopi kaunteya nakaroti nalapyate. Those with the vision of eternity,
eternal and beyond the modes of nature, despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled.
Ita savagatam sokshmyat akasham nopalipite savatra ye tathatmano palipite.
The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul, situated in Brahman vision, does not mix with the body, though situated in that body.
Ta prakashatyeka krityam lokam imam bhavihi kshetram kshetri tata krishnam prakashayati bharata. O son of Bharata,
as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness.
Kshetra kshetra gayor evam antaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti moksham cha he viduryanti te param. One who knowingly sees the difference
between the body and the owner of the body and can understand the process of liberation from this bondage also attains to the supreme goal.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha Param Bhuya Pravakshami Jnananam Jnanam Uttamam Yajgyatvam Munayak Sarve Param Siddhimito Gata. The Blessed Lord said, again I shall
declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained to supreme perfection.
Idam jnanam upashritya mamasadam yamagata sarge pinopajayate pralayena vyatanti cha. By becoming fixed in this knowledge,
one can attain to the transcendental nature, which is like my own nature. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation, nor disturbed at the time of dissolution.
Which text are we going to start on 30? How many are 30? Chapter. Up to what? Okay. Mama yoni mahad brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham sambhava sarva bhutanam tato bhakti bharata. The total material substance called Brahman
making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata.
So that coincides with the Prakriti. Last night we were hearing how the Lord impregnates Prakriti, and here it says he impregnates Brahman. So that's sequel names. Sarva yonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavantiya tasam brahma mahadyoni ambija pita. It should be understood.
Species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material world, nature, and that I am the seed-giving father.
Satpam rajas tamayati guna prakriti sambhava nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehi namagayam. Material nature consists of the three modes.
When the living entity comes in contact with nature, he becomes conditioned by these modes.
Now we're going back to text 30. Someone can read the translation and purport.
One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. Purport. This body is made by material nature under the direction of the Supersoul, and whatever activities are going on in respect to one's body are not his doing. Whatever one is supposed to do, whether for happiness or for distress, one is forced to do because of this bodily constitution. The self, however, is outside all these bodily activities. His body is given according to one's past desires. To fulfill desires, one is given the body with which he acts accordingly. Practically speaking, the body is a machine designed by the Supreme Lord to fulfill desires. Because of desires, one is put into difficult circumstances to suffer or to enjoy. This transcendental vision of the living entity, when developed, makes one separate from bodily activities. One who actually has such a vision is an actual seer.
With this philosophy, one has to be able to distinguish between matter and spirit and the controller of both. That's knowledge. And so everyone should do this. What's the difference between the body and the spirit? Everyone understand that? Body and spirit? What's the difference between body and the spirit soul.
Yes.
Transformed by one to another to different things. Basically, but to some extent, what I know is that the body is different and our soul is different. Soul is perpetual and body is different. Body may die, but soul is not. Am I right?
Couldn't understand what you're saying. Yeah. So that's described here that the body is made of matter. And the soul is not matter. Soul is eternal, existing. And matter is always changing. And also an important point here is that although the living entity is involved with the activities, but it is involved because of its desires. In other words, the living entity cannot act on his own, independently. He has to submit his desires, which happens by subtly. He has his desires, and the Lord is aware of them. The Lord's super soul in the heart. So the living entity then expresses his desires. I want to enjoy like this, or I want to go here. So then that's examined by the Lord. The Lord consults. He has his different agents, his assistants, the demigods, millions of demigods, like Yamaraj, or like the sun god, or Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva. They're in charge of different things. So they're consulted, and it's decided that this person, he wants to do this, but he doesn't, he's not entitled to do that by his activities. But he may be entitled to something else. So they arrange that he must do this. Because now he is decided. For example, let's say if someone goes to court, he has been accused of performing so many wrong deeds. So the judge hears the accusations, and he brings in the witnesses, and hears all the data, sees all the photos, the evidence, and then he consults with his expert assistants, and then he makes his decision. This person will be, he's found guilty, but he'll be on probation. If he doesn't perform any, again, criminal activities, he'll be relieved. This will be taken off his record. Okay, or he may be given some very stiff penalty, 30 years in prison, no chance of parole. So these are all decided by the judge. But they're decided by the judge according to the desire and activities of the culprit or of the person who's being accused. That's what it means. Now, material nature is carrying out the orders of the Lord. Daivihesha gunamayi mamamaya dharati, yeah? What's the verse I want? Maya dakshina prakriti. Sute sacharacharam. Hetunanena konteya. Jagat viparivarte. Material nature is working under his direction and is bringing about all the activities. So Krishna he is the controller. Ishvara Parama Krishna. That's a statement by Lord Brahma. He is the supreme and controller. And Maya, Jagat Viparivarte, she's working under his direction. That means the whole material nature is working under his direction. And so actually, living entity is not really doing it. He's, now that he has had the free will to desire and act within certain boundaries. He doesn't have complete freedom to act as he wishes. For example, he may say, I want to go to other planets and blow them up. I like to blow up a planet. Can't do that. He doesn't have the qualifications. He's not allowed to do it. But he might say, I want to go to a bank and blow that up. Well, that you can do it. So material nature says, yes, you can do it. Get some good friends, good contacts, have a friend who's in the dynamite company business, and he does it. And then he gets the result. And he gets the money from the vault, but he may be caught also, and maybe found guilty. So this is he has some limited freedom to decide what he wants to do. Once he decides that and he acts on it, then he's again controlled by the nature in what the reaction is. Everyone understand that? Not exactly free to act, completely free, but he has some freedom. And once he uses that freedom for a particular act, then he's held responsible for that. That means either to enjoy the good reaction of that activity, or receive the unpleasant results.
So, this doing and like having like a reaction and like having it's like this doing and then like having like and experiencing like a good or bad reaction. Is this from um moving from the false self, whereas like when we take up Krishna consciousness and we're seeing.
And when one takes up Krishna consciousness, he's no longer under the laws of material nature. If he takes it purely. That was the verse I quoted for that. He's one who engages in devotional service without any falling down, at once comes to the level of Brahman. He's on the transcendental platform. What's that verse? Hmm? Hey, you speak in the microphone, I can hear it.
Yeah, I think it was this one. Amsa Yogya Vicharayana.
Amsa Yoga Vitatana, Bhakti Yogina Siddhite, Sukunam Sampichaitan, Manabhuyaya Kalpate. Let's read that verse. Read the translation, please.
One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme. Oh.
Mam Shayo Vivitani. Mam Shayo. Yeah, that sounds right.
One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman.
Yeah, that's the question you're asking about the devotee. The devotee who's engaged in pure devotional service, he's not subject to the reactions of his activities. He's engaged in akarma, means he's acting, but there's no material reaction. Go on.
We were speaking about desires. I was just wondering, what is the process for having a desire?
You don't have to have a process, it's already going on.
What's that?
We've been desiring since time immemorial. Everyone knows that when a cat walks around the street, it has desires. I want a mouse. I want a bird. All living entities have desires. It's the nature of the living entity. He's eternal and he has desires.
You were talking about how Krishna decides. He has consultants when he's the demigods and things like that. But when it comes to the devotees, he personally takes responsibility and does what are
devotees are not under the same category as the non-devotees. Non-devotees are engaged in criminal and pious activities. So pious or impious activities. A devotee isn't engaged in pious or impious. His activities are all Brahman. And on the transcendental platform, there's no material reactions.
But the devotees also they have different desires for serving Krishna in different ways. What's
the mechanism for that? That's Krishna. Krishna personally, or Yogamaya. He has also spiritual associates who assist him. Yogamaya, and Yogamaya's got a whole arrangement how she handles the spiritual activities for Krishna's pleasure. The material world is like the criminal department. So there's the president or the prime minister, the king, he has his assistants who are supervising the criminal department, and he has assistants that are supervising the education department, all the different departments.
Hare Krishna. From the purport in text 30, it says, this body is given according to one's past desires, and to fulfill desires, one is given the body to which he acts accordingly.
I missed this last part. Where is it?
In the middle of the purport for text 30.
Text
30. Text 30.
30.
And with this consideration, is this also applicable to bodily diseases, diseases, or bodily ailments? As in, like, for past desires, we are given like bodily ailments in this life to learn lessons from.
What was the sentence that you read? The body is given.
This body is given according to one's past desires. To fulfill desires, one is given the body, which he acts accordingly.
With which he acts accordingly, yes.
And with that, I was just curious if this is also applicable to bodily diseases that we may have in this life. If it is from past desires that we have these bodily ailments to learn from.
Yes, we get penalties from our past desires and activities, and we get rewards. If someone is given a good, healthy body, beautiful, strong, that's a result of his past activities. If he gets body diseased, weak, etc., that's exactly. That's why we can't, there's no use getting upset about it, because it's ordained. It's like once we've committed a crime and we've been judged for it, now it's just a question of carrying out the sentence. Sentences, we have to go to this prison for so long, and we switch to another one. That's going to happen because he's already gone through the process of being accused, tried, and judged. Now he's been sentenced. Did I answer that question? Is that okay? Is that question, is that okay?
Hare Krishna. I was wondering, for someone like Srila Prabhupada, for example, he's a pure devotee, so he's not acting in the modes. Is it possible, and if so, to what extent, for him to be in error or make a mistake?
Well, if you say error, like, well, he maybe hit the wrong key on the computer sometime, that type of error, that's not really an error. If you want to call it an error. But even his errors, if you look at a higher principle, you'll see that it just goes more to show his glory. In other words, the more you examine a pure devotee, if someone is actually objective and intelligent and open-minded, he'll see that whatever so-called faults are there are they're just embellishments that I couldn't recognize due to my insufficiency. Therefore, there's like if someone criticizes a saintly person who's, say, he's deformed, that's also described in the Nectar of Instruction, that one should not consider the faults. This deals exactly with your question. One should not consider the faults of a pure devotee. He may have a bad complexion, he may have disease. Those should not be seen. And the example is given of the Ganga. Ganga water is pure. So if there's something that doesn't seem like it's pure, intelligent person pushes it aside, drinks the pure Ganga, and gets the benefit. So one should not criticize those so-called apparent faults, because they're not actually faults. Just like we have a devotee and he only has one leg. And you can say, fault. Not a fault, glory, because how does he work with his one leg that he has? I can think of one devotee in our movement, been many years, and he had that. Actually, he had two legs when he joined, but one leg was deformed and very spindly. Didn't work very well. Anyway, it's a long story, but he ended up with one leg. But he is glorious, more glorious because of that. More glorious because he uses everything in Krishna's service. So someone can read the next text, translation, and then the purport.
Those with a vision of eternity can see that the soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body or Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. A living entity appears because of the birth of the material body, but actually the living entity is eternal. He is not born, and in spite of his being situated in a material body, he is transcendental and eternal. Thus he cannot be destroyed. By nature he is full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. Therefore the activities performed due to his contact with the material bodies did not entangle him. So this is kind of a reiteration of what is said in previous chapters, chapter 2. Krishna says, Jayate mriyate va kadatsin nayam bhuta bhavita mana bhuyaha ajo nityam shashvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. This is a wonderful verse which describes the nature of the soul. And again, Krishna here is speaking similarly on the nature of the soul, using words like eternal, beyond material nature, this is transcendental, inexhaustible, and so the soul is part of Krishna's superior energy, to touch the Shakti, specifically his marginal energy, which is able to move in between being situated within the superior energy and the inferior energy, the material energy. The living entities have that ability to move in between. So qualitatively, we're one with the Lord. So by nature, the souls are full of bliss. And that bliss, the full manifestation of that bliss, is realized in Krishna consciousness. When we take up to devotional service, we can get freed from the material conception of life and attain our natural blissful position as servants of Krishna just by engaging in devotional service, which is wonderful because we've been given everything we need to plug into and be successful. You know, we don't have to speculate, don't have to perform so many severe austerities, don't have to do anything which is, you know, displeasurable or unnatural for us, because devotional service is the natural state of the living entity, or it's the natural propensities of the living entity to serve Krishna. We don't have to do anything which goes against our actual nature. We have taken in the material conception of life, we've accepted a false identity, a false ego, and so engaging in devotion that brings up some obstacles for us because we're identifying with this. And devotional service naturally will disrupt that and ultimately destroy that false ego. But when we're in the conditioned life, then our prerogative will be to enjoy matter and namely enjoy the body and the senses and the mind, like that. Enjoy the sense objects, which all these things are ultimately Krishna's energy. So we can be situated in that inferior energy or the spiritual energy. And within the inferior energy, we'll experience suffering because we'll be trying to enjoy that which is temporary. And that won't be very nice for us because we're after something which is eternal, because the soul is eternal and the bliss that is inherent with the soul is eternal. Service to Krishna is eternal. So we'll only be satisfied with that, yayatma supersediti, by engaging in devotional service. Unreserved and unalloyed devotional service, pure devotional service, then we'll actually be satisfied. That'll be a type of pleasure that will be of a supreme quality that will give us that satisfaction that we're looking for. So it's so nice that we have this program, which we can plug into, and we can be engaged in spiritual activities right off the bat. Just have to have a little faith in the devotee association, and then we can perform these spiritual activities, Krishna conscious activities, and gradually we'll see that we become freed up from this material entanglement. It becomes easy to give up bad habits. Gross bad habits go. We take up things like cleanliness, internal cleanliness, external cleanliness. External cleanliness, washing the body, bathing, shaving, wearing devotional clothing, tilak, all these different things. Internal cleanliness, chanting Hare Krishna, thinking about Krishna, speaking about Krishna, preaching about Krishna, all these different things, reading about Krishna. And more we're letting go of the symptoms of our conditioning. The gross activities usually go pretty quickly. Then we're left with some subtle things, some psychological things that we're getting over in the mind. And then those things go, envy, all these different things, anger, lust, greed. We work through all of our problems and we come to the perfectional stage of life. We're able to relish the bliss of devotional service and get a taste of the spiritual experience, eternal pleasure. So it's wonderful, wonderful program we have here. Let's continue. Let's see, text 33. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body. What's that? Oh, I thought I just read that one, 32. Oh. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Purport: the air enters into water, mud, stool, and whatever else is there. Still, it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. Therefore, it is impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can ascertain this. So it's a nice analogy that Krishna is giving here. Nice comparison between the sky. The sky is subtle, so it doesn't mix with any of the gross elements. Similarly, although it is spread everywhere. So all of the gross elements are situated ultimately within the sky, within the ether. So earth, water, fire, air. And then ether. And the subtle elements, mind, intelligence, falsity. But those gross elements are situated within the ether. Ether being the most subtle of all the gross elements. But that ether, although those gross elements are situated within the ether does not become mixed with any of them. It doesn't become mixed up. Like you see, if you can mix dirt and water and it becomes mud, or water and fire, earth and fire, all of them can be mixed up. But ether actually remains free from, it doesn't mix up with any of them. Similarly, the soul, from the proper perspective, we can see that the soul doesn't actually mix up with the body. And actually, it's understood that of all the elements, in this process of Sankhya Yoga, which Krishna speaks, and a lot of different incarnations of Krishna that have come, Kapila Dev and other ones, they speak this process of Sankhya Yoga. And the soul is considered to be the subtlest of all the elements that are given in that Sankhya Yoga breakdown, just before the, or just second to the super soul, or Krishna, which is the most subtle. Because actually everything is coming from him, even the soul. Everything is situated within him. He's the most subtle. So similarly, from the Brahman vision, we see that the soul is transcendental. It doesn't actually mix with the body, although it is situated within the body. All right, does anyone have any comments or anything? Maybe a few more moments. Yes, Prabhu?
I want to understand how so the soul is not doing anything. The soul is completely aloof, but the body is making. Well, the body is performing all these things, and so what is the role of the soul? I mean, what 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 yeah, like what is, so like knowing that I'm soul, or logically knowing that, should I understand that I actually am not making any decisions, that is my will, do I not actually do I only have a will when I think that I am this body, and then if I ever understand that I am this, when I understand the self who does nothing, then I don't have any will.
We have free will. It's minute, and we're meant to cooperate with the Lord. Ultimately, the Lord is the proprietor and the maintainer and the controller of everything. Even this body, he's called Rishikesha. He's the master of the senses, like that. And we're meant to work with him. So as a super soul, he's seated there. As his body, he actually belongs to him. I actually belong to him as well. Me, the soul, I actually belong to him. But I do have some free will, and he reciprocates with that. And we work together. Self does nothing, nor is entangled. The soul neither does anything nor is entangled. Yeah, there's another verse. Krishna says, Prakriti kriyamanani guna karmani sarvaja ahankari vimudatma kartahamiti manyate. That the conditioned living entities thinks himself to do, or in actuality, everything is carried out by the modes of nature. Another verse that Maharaj spoke is Maya Dakshina Prakriti Suyate Sacharacham Hetu Naneta Kondeya Jagat Viparivartate. That the material energy is in control, the Lord is in control of the material energy. So as for this soul neither does anything nor is entangled. The soul, I mean, as far as I've understood it, the soul is the cause of certain things due to his desire. But as for the actually carrying out of things, it's basically the Lord's will. But he reciprocates with the living entity's desire. So maybe some other devotees have something else. You want to say something?
Right. So, okay, so these things for the soul, it's happening. The soul is uh, alive, conscious in things, but nothing. The soul doesn't have any actual say or sanction to make any action because it cannot do anything without the sanction of Krishna. In that way, it does nothing. Okay.
Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.